Hello, friends, and welcome to Bad Book Club, where I, Jade, a silly goose with an English degree, read classic and popular literature so you don't have to. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Bad Book Club. So this week is on The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. It's a very famous book. It's even been turned into a movie. And because it's Thanksgiving, I am actually not going to do a summary of The Hate You Give. I'm going to give you like a brief one. I'll give you like a really short one. But I'm not going to get too into it because I just think, like it's Thanksgiving and I didn't want it to be too crazy. And also, like, you probably don't have time to listen to like an hour-long thing for Thanksgiving. And I just thought, just take it easy, And The Hate You Give is so popular, so well known. There's a movie on it. I feel like, if you wanted a summary, you could get one. So I'm just going to give you a really short one, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on the book, and we're just going to have a conversation and jive together for a little while, and then I'm going to let you go for Thanksgiving, and I'll see you next week. All right? Is that okay with everybody? Does that sound all right? Thank you for being easy with me. November's been a little bit hectic because of vet visits and and pandemics and holidays. So I'm keeping Thanksgiving just simple because it is Thanksgiving today. So yay! Anyway, let's just get started. Let's talk a little bit about the book, and then I'll tell you some of my thoughts about it. So, the story of The Hate You Give is actually a fairly simple premise. It is a coming-of-age story, and it's it's because a girl named Star, who's 16, watches her friend Khalil be shot to death on, when they were pulled over by a cop. So she watches this happen, and then she has to battle her own struggle between attending a school that's mostly white and finding herself and trying to decide whether she should stand up for Khalil despite consequences and tell the story, or avoid speaking out and keep her family safe. So it's a lot about her own transition and her own finding herself and understanding where she exists in her own community, her school, her family. It's the perfect coming-of-age novel. And I chose it because it has the word give in it. That was the only reason why I chose it. It's a coming-of-age novel and it has the word give. And it's Thanksgiving, so I thought that we would talk about it. It's incredibly famous. It has sold a crazy amount of copies. I don't know the exact number. And it was even made into a movie, so that's very cool beans. Which you already know because I already told you. But it's just impressive to me, sometimes it can be sad. I feel like we as people get told that no one reads anymore, and we don't talk much about books, but it's obvious people do because books still get sold out. Books like this one get famous and well known very easily. And I don't know, I think this one has a really nice message, especially in light of the Black Lives Matter movement. So let's just do a quick summary and then I'll tell you about it. So Star Carter is a 16-year-old Black girl, and one night she attends a party in her neighborhood of Garden Heights with her sort of sister Kenya. Her brother Seven is the son of her biological father and Kenya's mother. So I'm not going to think about what sort of familial relation that is, but some sort of sister. And she goes to this party, and while she's there, she bumps into her old friend Khalil. And they've been friends for forever, and unfortunately she doesn't see him much anymore because Star goes to Williamson Prep, which is primarily a white school. And she mentions that in Garden Heights she kind of feels out of place, especially at parties, because she doesn't know people as much and she doesn't hang out with them that much, but she loves Khalil. So they start to talk, and she notices that he's a little bit fancier than normal. He's wearing really nice sneakers and he has some really nice clothes on. And she wonders if he may have gotten into the drug scene of Garden Heights, which is a pretty, not a big thing, but maybe a problematic part of the neighborhood is that a lot of the young boys get into the drug scene because Garden Heights, Star refers to it as the ghetto, but she says that when other people call it the ghetto, it makes her sad because it's her home. So she can call it that, but it makes her upset when other people do. And while they're talking, unfortunately, at the party, shots go off. So she and Khalil run out together. They go to Khalil's car, they jump in, and they drive away. While they're driving, they are pulled over by a cop. Now, nothing is wrong with Khalil's car. He isn't drunk. They weren't swerving. And they don't understand why they're being pulled over, but they do. So they get pulled over, and Star tells us that she has been told by her dad, Maverick, that when a cop pulls you over, you should keep your hands where they can be seen, no sudden movements, and just do whatever the cop says no matter what. Don't give him any sass. And she hopes that Khalil knows the same rules because Khalil's in the driver's seat. Unfortunately, Khalil kind of gives the cop like some sass. Like, he just questions why they stopped him. And she notices, too, that the cop's badge number is 115 because Maverick told her it's good to remember his badge number. And he 115 pulls them over. Khalil says, "Why did you stop us?" And 115 doesn't like the sass, so he tells Khalil to get out of the car, and he searches him, like frisks him. Doesn't find anything on him because Khalil doesn't have anything on him. And then 115 tells him not to move, and he walks back to his car. At this moment, Khalil opens the door and says, "Star, are you okay?" And 115 turns around and shoots Khalil twice in the back right in front of Star. She waits for the ambulance to arrive with 115's gun pointed at her the entire time. Her parents pick her up and take her home. She pukes on the car ride home. And then at home, she has nightmares about a friend when she was younger named Natasha, who died in a drive-by shooting when she was even younger. So she's had two really good friends die because of gun-related violence in her neighborhood, and she's having a really hard time with it. The next day at school, she's really tense around her friends. She has two friends, Haley and Maya, and then she has a white boyfriend named Chris, who before the shooting, they had kind of been having a little bit of a fight. And when she sees him, he tries to cheer her up, and it almost works, but she has a flashback of Khalil's death. And she realizes that, like, he doesn't understand the situation because he's white. Like, she can't tell him what happened, and he won't really understand how she feels because, like, he's never going to understand that kind of thing. And she kind of like pushes him away, like not physically, but like emotionally. And at the urging of her uncle, Carlos, who's a police officer, she goes to the police station with her mom to testify about Khalil's shooting. And the officers start to ask her more questions about whether Khalil was a drug dealer, whether he caused trouble, whether he was, if he had a gun in the car, like what he had done to irritate the officer, more so than like what actually happened the night of the shooting. Like, they're like, "Isn't he a drug dealer? Like, have you ever seen him deal drugs?" And she's like, "No, like, isn't this supposed to be about the shooting that night? Like, what are you talking about?" And so she has a lot of trouble because she feels like they're putting Khalil on trial for his own murder. She's like, he didn't kill himself. Like, like he got shot when he was pulled over, when he didn't have anything on him or in the car, not a weapon, not drugs, nothing. And they just seem to be trying to find justification for it. And that chapter is really funny because it ends with, this is going to be some bullshit, quote unquote, because she and her mom are both irritated about the way the testimony went as they searched for reasons why it was okay that Khalil died. And so she worries that Khalil won't get any justice, but she hasn't come forward as a witness because she's worried that if she comes forward as a witness, that it will endanger herself and her family. At Khalil's funeral, a lawyer and activist named April Ofra tells everyone that Khalil didn't have anything in the car whenever 115 shot him. He didn't have a gun, didn't have drugs, like there's nothing on him. And they have like a rally in Khalil's honor. And Star blames herself because she thinks that if she had testified better, told more about how 115 held his gun on her until the ambulance arrived, that maybe it would have gone differently. And she also blames the local gang called the King Lords, because they come in during the funeral and put a bandana on Khalil's casket, which kind of means he was part of the King Lords, which is not good. But April Ofra also tells her that if she needs a lawyer, she'd be one pro bono for her. Now, on the news, the police start to say that they're not going to prosecute the cop, and there are protests in her neighborhood of Garden Heights. So it's a little crazy. There are riots, there are gunshots going off. Her family has to duck down in their den because there's no windows in there. And her dad goes to their store so he can guard it just in case people come in. And her dad, by the way, Maverick, used to be a king lord, but he went to jail to protect a fellow gang member, and so he got out of the gang. But his name is Maverick, and he's pretty cool. But anyway, she starts to talk to her father, and they have this whole conversation about Tupac's phrase, thug life, which Khalil and her had actually been talking about. And they talk about how thug life stands for the hate you give little infants fucks everybody, quote unquote. Sorry for the language, but that's what it says. And they talk about what that means. And basically, Khalil, when they were in the car, said that what it means is when you are mean to the young children, like it hurts everyone in society. But her dad goes further with it and says, like, the hate you give, he's like, what is the hate? And she's like, I think it's, like sort of just societal oppression, not offering the amount of jobs, like that kind of thing, and how it keeps us like lower. And they have this whole conversation about it, and it's pretty well explained, honestly. I think that Angie Thomas tries to explain like systematic like and racial oppression in like a non-confrontational like way that I think makes a lot of sense. And I think it was really well put, especially in the light of Black Lives Matter. People have been talking about that a lot more. And I think this book was the best way I've heard it described ever, So I think that it did a really good job of describing it using Tupac's phrase, thug life, and what he thinks it stands for. So it was kind of nice. They talked about it. And he says that the only way that Black communities can break the cycle is by speaking out against it, and just making change that they want to see happen. And so she says, well, if I want to see change happen, like, don't I have to, like, be a part of it? Like, I have to speak out, right? Like, I have to tell everyone what happened that night. I have to say I was there. And he doesn't want her to because he loves his daughter, wants her to be safe. But he's also like, well, I mean, yeah, but, like, it's up to you. He's kind of a cool guy, so that's cool. Now, shortly after this, Maverick helps out a young boy named Devontae get out of being a king lord because he had joined the gang and decided he didn't want to be in it. He made a mistake, and he goes to Maverick, says, hey, like, I don't want to be in this gang anymore. Please help me. And Maverick, seeing how he could have helped Khalil, tries to help Devontae. And he gets into like an argument, kind of related, kind of not, with his barber, like across the street, not like his own. There's a barber across the street from Maverick's store, and they have a bit of an argument about the boy, nothing serious, because they just want to help the boy get out of the gang. And the police show up, and when they take Maverick's license and realize that it's Star's father, they pin him to the ground and get really violent. And Star has to watch this happen. And she says that, like, they search him, and she's really scary. And Kenya pressures her. She's like, hey, like, why aren't you testifying? And at that moment, Star decides that even if she is silent, like, if this is the result of it, like, that's not what she's going to do. So she says, I'm going to testify. I'm going to, do the whole thing. I'm going to do the grand jury, and, like, I'll testify. And she gets April Ofra to represent her pro bono, and she also gets Star a television interview. Now, during this time, Devontae tells Star that Khalil wasn't actually a gang member. He was just trying to pay off his mom's debts because his mom is a druggie. Her name is Brenda. And that he was trying to do it. So Brenda took too much drugs, didn't pay for it. He was trying to pay it off by selling some drugs, but he wasn't a part of the gang. And so in the television interview, Star tells what happened, but she also mentions that, like, Khalil is not really a drug dealer. He was doing it for his mom. And that implication to the guy who's the leader of the King Lords, his name is King. Like, his name is King, and he's the leader of the King Lords, so it's very easy to follow. He's also, by the way, Seven, her brother. Her brother's name is Seven, the brother she shares with Kenya. It's Kenya's dad is King, and, like, Seven's, like, stepdad, I guess, because his mom is married to him. Confusing family. But anyway, which makes King upset because, by the way, like, it implies that when he put the bandana on the casket that he was kind of lying, So that night, a brick gets thrown through their window and a gun is fired into their house, which is really scary. They're not sure if the culprits were actually the King Lords or if they were the police. And Star almost backs out of testifying, but she decides, like, no, I still have to do it. And 2 months after the grand jury announces the decision that they're not going to indict 115. And so Star and her friends kind of, like, get into the riots that happened because of that. And as she tries to avoid some chaos, she stumbles into like a protest that Miss Ofra, her lawyer, is a part of. And Miss Ofra gives Star, like the little like megaphone thing. And Star leads a chant for them. And the police break it up with tear gas, and they go to her dad's store and they get milk for their eyes, which, by the way, if tear gas is shot at you, milk is not good for your eyes and actually is bad. You should just use I think there are other suggestions, but by the way, just milk is not the good choice. I don't know why that is like a thing people think, but it's worse for your eyes. Anyway, eye health, just saying. Anyway, they go for milk though, and while they're in the store, someone throws a Molotov cocktail in there, and it traps them, and it's on fire, and her dad arrives just in time and unlocks the back door for them, and King taunts them and is all loud about oh, I'm so you guys are dumb, and really proud about his getting his justice and revenge and whatever. And the police arrive. And King thinks that no one is going to testify against him, even though they saw him do it, and claims that he has no idea what happened. Although, it's kind of nice. All the neighbors rally around the Carter family and tell the police they saw King throw the Molotov cocktail, and they arrest King. And even though the grocery store is kind of ruined and destroyed, Star ends the book feeling kind of hopeful because she knows that they can rebuild it. She knows that justice for Khalil is still being fought for, and she knows that she's going to keep fighting for any of other Black people who are killed at the hands of the police, and that her neighborhood is kind of a good place to be. And that's the end of the book, so it ends on a good note. And there's a lot of stuff that happens in the middle too. There's stuff she has a time with her friends to be they struggle their own way because one of her friends starts saying kind of racist comments, and so she has to deal with that. She has to deal with her boyfriend being white, and she doesn't tell her dad about it until later on because she knows her dad will be upset that he's white. And it's actually a really heartbreaking moment because her dad later admits that the reason why he was upset about that was he thought that Star saw his relationship with her mom and didn't want that, and she tells him that no, that's not the case at all. You're the guy who taught me what a man should be, right? So it's really adorable. It's a really cute story. It's very heartwarming. It's really an easy read. And before I get too much into the analysis, I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be back in a minute. So yay, we're done with the summary and we're on to analysis. So anyway, like I was saying before, this book was an enjoyable read. Honestly, it was a little sad. I think that this book, if you're going to read it, it's really heavy. It's really racially charged. Obviously, she's gone through some really rough things. Her childhood is very ripped away from her eyes. I was upset with my husband this week because I told him why didn't you keep me from doing coming of age stories? Because coming of age stories are really sad. Why didn't you tell me that was going to be a stupid choice? And he was we were laughing about that. But anyway, it is a little sad because it's serious, and it talks about any issues that America has, and I think it is really poignant for right now, and it's really it made a lot of statements, and I think it explained really well. I feel like things can get really confusing and difficult to talk about, especially with family or friends or any sort of differing beliefs. But it's nice to know there's this book out there which kind of puts things into the perspective of a young girl, and it explains things well, and I think it explains things in a way that is just helpful and gives you lots of information. And at the same time, it's an easy read. It has really sweet, heartwarming moments. I think this is a really good book. I don't know if it's one of my favorite books ever. I think just because it was so sad, I don't know if I would, I'd recommend it to friends, but I wouldn't say it was one of my favorite books ever. I'm something too that I noticed is I'm not sure how well this book will age, not because of any sort of topics that are discussed, but because there are a lot, and I mean a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Not urban references. What are they? I don't know, references for the time, pop culture references. That's the word I'm looking for. So it is so many pop culture references. At the very book starts with how they're at the party, how people are naying, which is a dance move, which is already kind of an old dance move. And it is just really heavy on, she talks about like Jordans, they talk about Tumblr, which made me laugh because Tumblr is not even really a thing anymore. And this book isn't even that old. It's only a couple years old. And like, I don't even know if that's a con really, because it's fun to read a book that is so in the now. Like, in the way that Tumblr is like a big deal to Star, she has this whole moment where one of her friends unfollowed her because she posted a picture of Emmett Till. And so she's upset because it's Tumblr. And it made me laugh because I was like, that's really funny. But it's also like, I think accurate for like the high school experience when you're older. It's kind of a big deal if someone unfollows you on social media. And a lot of books, I think nowadays, don't go into social media. They don't talk about media really. They like to pretend like, like pop culture stuff doesn't really exist so that their work can maintain its longevity. It's not like too stuck in a time period. But it's kind of nice because it puts you in a real like spot. Like it puts you in a real setting, a time. Like it makes me feel like I'm back in high school even. Like I didn't care about Tumblr in high school, but like Instagram was just starting to be a thing when I was in high school. And it would have been a big deal if one of my friends unfollowed me. Like that would have been a big deal. So yeah, it was interesting. I don't know if it's a pro or con. I think it's a pro in that while you're reading it, it's nice because it really sets you in the moment. And it's cool to read a book that's not afraid to make all these pop culture references. Like she talks a lot about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air because that's her favorite show. Like, I don't know how like, like relevant that will be in like 40 years. I don't know if this book is going to maintain its like longevity. But it is fun to read because I know the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and not a lot of books reference the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like it's fun to read a book that talks about it. So it's a pro and a con, but it was really interesting. Like I said, I really like the way that things are put into kind of layman's terms in terms of like societal issues or like issues that Star is going through. I think that this book is an easy read. I don't think this book is not like literary fiction. Like it's literary fiction in that it's fiction and it's literary, but like it's not Sing Unburied Sing. It doesn't have like, it has themes, right? It has themes of like racial tension, friendships, like, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm blanking. But anyway, has all these themes like gun violence, like drugs, like oppression, racism. Like it deals with themes throughout. And it deals with too, like even some mental illness. Like Star obviously has some sort of PTSD from her event. Like she and her mom go through like a cop, like, what's it called? Like a checkpoint sort of because of the riots. And Star like has like a full panic attack because they get stopped by cops, which honestly fair. Like if a friend of mine was shot while a cop pulled me over, like I don't know if I would ever feel safe when a cop pulls me over anymore. It just wouldn't be something that I would feel. So like they deal with that in a very like real world sort of way. But like I said, it's not a story that has any magical realism. It's not a story that's a difficult reading level, Like it's a story and it's supposed to be easily accessible and it's supposed to make sense and it's supposed to just give you like an emotional life of someone who has it like worse than you, like probably not for everybody. If for all my listeners, you might have a life very similar to Star, but for me, this is a life different from mine. So it's cool to step into someone else's shoes and read from someone else's point of view. And it's really impressive that this is Angie Thomas's first novel and it got super big, but it got super big and famous. And I can see why it did because it's so easily accessible and it puts like difficult situations and difficult concepts into an easy to digest like point of view. And I think that's nice. Like everyone wants things to be put into simple terms. And so it's nice that in a conversation with her dad, she kind of explains things that people may not know, that they may not understand, maybe that they didn't fully understand, or maybe something they already knew. And they're like, oh, cool. Like this is nice to read again. So I don't know. It's just nice. And I feel like, this is a good book to read if you're into learning more about the Black Lives Matter movement, about, like Black injustice and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think this is like, it was a good choice, I think, to read, even if it was a little sad on Thanksgiving. But it also had lots of heartwarming moments. I really like the characters. That is one of the biggest things in this book that I like the most. I feel like the characters are all really real. I think the first half of the book actually is a little too stressful for me because I knew that this book was about a friend being shot. And I was like, oh no, like which friend is going to be shot? Like I had to Google it. I'm not going to lie. I had to Google which friend got shot because we run through like a couple different ones. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so stressed out right now. I was like, something bad's going to happen. I can feel it at this party. Like shots ring out at the party itself and then they get pulled over. I was like, this is just a whole mess of an evening. And like, it's way too much. So I was really nervous during the first half. But even during that first half, I really enjoyed the characters. Like Star is a character that like I feel is really easy to connect with. She's someone who feels out of place. And I feel like that's something everyone can relate to, especially in high school. You know, like everyone can feel like the awkwardness of being at a party, or they can feel like the awkwardness of being around friends who don't really know your personal life, stuff like that. Not that I have a secret life that my friends don't know about. I'm just saying that in high school, everyone feels like a certain level of discomfort and like awkwardness that's very present here that makes Star easy to like and easy to empathize with. And I like all the other characters. Like Khalil before he dies, like I really like him. He's really nice. He's really friendly to Star. I know, it's so sad. I love her family. Her mom is so cool. She's like a nurse. She's so friendly. She talks like a nurse. She talks like a caring mom. Her dad is really cool. I like Big Maverick. They call him Big Maverick. He went to jail and he has this whole history, but he's he seems to be like a good guy. He's just trying his best, you know? So that's really cool. And like, I would say like even her brothers, she has a younger brother named Sikani who's really cool. And her older brother Seven is also very cool. I think Kenya is kind of like uncool, but since she's uncool, I like her because she's written well. She's written kind of like a sassy kind of bratty character, but people are like that in real life. It wouldn't make sense to have all this like family stuff going on and not have family tensions and family issues since they're kind of like what is it called is it like a blended family? I thought that was different whenever there's like several parents of like children, or is that just like a big family? Whatever. If you have a really big family and all these connections, I can't imagine how there wouldn't be tension once in a while. And so I think that like having that tension between her and her sister, because she has this thing where Kenya always says my brother rather than our brother. And she's like, he's my brother too. Like he's both of our brothers. And I think that's like a really cool thing to put in because you can like someone and even be close to a person while having stuff they do, especially family stuff, like irritate you. It seems very family to me. And I thought that seemed really real and I really liked it. There was just a lot about this book that I really enjoyed. I think it was written well. I think it was easy. I think it was sad and it was stressful. This book is one of those books where like the whole time I thought something was going to go wrong. Like I was just waiting for the other shoe to drop like the entire time. There's even like nice moments and like there's like stuff where they're happy. Like they go to a dance and she's dancing with Chris and she's like happy and she's not thinking about Khalil or Natasha or anything. She's just having a good time. And like those are so nice and they're good. But like all the other times I'm like, oh God, like she's speaking out now and like King's going to be mad. He's going to kill their whole family. Like Maverick stands up to King about Devontae and I'm like, oh gosh, like Maverick's going to die. Like I just thought that the worst thing was going to happen because like it's written in a way that creates tension and the tension is like too much for me. I'm just like too stressed. I was like, I can't handle it if Big Maverick dies. Like I really like him. So she made me really like the characters enough that I was very worried for them and that made me very stressed out. But yeah, I think if you're looking for like an airplane read, I wouldn't take it on like a fun vacation because it might be sad. But if you're looking for like an airplane read, like a weekend read, if you want to have like a politically active week, maybe read this one because it was well written. It was good. Even if you read it not for political reasons, it's still a good book because it puts you in the perspective of someone different from you, and that's always good to read. So that's fun. And so, yeah, I just really enjoyed it. It was fun. Like I said, I think the only thing that may irritate me, and it's not really an irritant, it's just that it was so stressful. Like I had to Google the story first because I was just so stressed out. I was like, what is going to happen? Like, it was too stressful for me to read it and like wonder if her dad's gonna die. Like some books are stressful because you know something bad's gonna happen, or there's so much stuff going on. There's so much chaos in her neighborhood. There's like riots. There's all these like elements that could lead to something bad that it made me feel like something bad would happen, which is good writing, but it was just very stressful. So like I had to Google it myself so I could know what the story was, like the basic story, know that no one else died before I read it. which made me laugh. But so that may or may not be a con for me. I mean, I like that it was well enough written that it made me worry though, so that's good. And the only other thing for me that was a little odd but also fun was all the pop culture references. Like there are so many, and it's fun, like I said, because it feels really relevant and it feels like fun because I'm like, oh, it's so high school, right? But like the problem is that already some of those pop culture references are outdated. And I don't know, sometimes it can feel a little forced, but I don't think it is forced. Does that make sense? Like I feel like if you're gonna put in pop culture references, there were so many in this one that it felt a little bit like a lot to me. But like also like if you're gonna put in pop culture references, it's a lot in our lives. Like I think of pop culture stuff like every day. So it would make sense that in a book, if you bring in pop culture, that it's going to be like present in a lot of the conversations. But like, you know, it's one of those things where I'm like, all right, like this is a lot of conversation about Tumblr. It feels a little much, but it is much because that's real. So I don't know, give and take, but it wasn't a huge problem. I still enjoyed it a lot, and it worked for our Thanksgiving read for the word give. And it's the title of the book is The Hate You Give, which is thug, according to Tupac, which is really cool. I don't know why. I didn't know that when I started reading. And so you learn the title and the meaning of it later on. And so I think that's fun. It's if you look at the title of this book and it's called The Hate You Give, this is about an event which was designed to kind of like suppress her Black community, or just even in a small bubble. Like it was about the story of a boy she knew and how his murder was kind of shoved under the rug, you know, and that's like not good. Sorry, I dropped something. So like it's the hate you give. Like this is the story about the hate that has been given to Khalil and to her community just in like a short while of her life. Like this is her experience. So I think the title is really accurate. I think it's really fun because you don't know what it means till they talk about Tupac and like thug life. So yeah, I thought that was really well done. I really liked the title. I liked the beginning, I liked the ending. Pacing was good. I love short chapters. You know, you should know by now, I love short chapters. So all in all, it was a good book. I don't really have that many complaints, but it's also not like a favorite. I feel like it was just really emotionally charged and it was just really intense. So it's not going to be like one of my favorite books because it's not. It was like one of those times where you watch a movie and the movie's really good, but you're like, I'm not interested in seeing that again. Like, for example, por ejemplo, that was terrible Spanish. I took Spanish for like 4 years and I just can't get it. I just can't get it right. But anyway, there was this movie a long time ago, tangent, that my dad watched with me called Rush. And it's really good. And it has like, what's his name? Thor actor guy in it. And it's a really good movie, but I saw it and I was like, I'm fine not seeing that for a long time. And I watched it again with my husband not too long ago. And I was like, I remember why I was fine watching this like one time and wasn't really interested in seeing it again, because it's really heavy. And that's kind of how this book felt to me. Like, it's just one of those things that's really heavy to watch. Like, it's just like emotionally like exhausting. Like, it's stressful. Like, it's sad. Like, it's just exhausting to read because it's exhausting for the characters. So it's just, I was like, wow. So it's just not one of my favorites because it's just so heavy, but like, I'd recommend it and it was a good read. So yeah, that's our Thanksgiving episode, and keep it short and sweet for you. Hopefully that summary was enough for you to feel like you knew what I was talking about. And I hope that you have the best Thanksgiving with your families and that you all stay happy and safe and know that you're the best and that you're lovely, and that I'll look forward to seeing you next time. On this episode of Thanksgiving, I thought I would ask you this week, if you have a friend, if you like Bad Book Club, could you recommend Bad Book Club to your friend and tell them to listen? I would really appreciate it. I want to reach new friends and new people and new lovelies. So if you think someone you know would like Bad Book Club, please recommend it to them. Send them a link of your favorite episode. Let them know that I'm a silly goose and that it's not going to be stressful. I'm just here to tell you a story and then critique that story for you. So it's going to be a good time. I appreciate it if you would. Other things you can do if you really like Bad Book Club, you could follow us on Instagram at Bad Book Club Pod, also Twitter. And you can also buy merchandise if you want from our store. I have cute shirts that I've designed myself that say Bad Book Club, but I also have stuff that says Always Reading, which is very cute in my personal opinion, obviously unbiased. And lastly, if you want to read The Hate You Give, if you want to read the books that we have been scheduled to read so far, like Twilight, I don't know, Life of Pi, like I really want to read something, you can buy any of those books on my website. There's a link. And if you buy one of those books from my link, it will support the podcast and also support a local bookstore, which is awesome because local bookstores really need the help they can get, like let's support local bookstores. And also, if you're reading this book and you feel inspired, there are Black-owned bookstores on there. So you can choose to buy from a Black-owned business, which would be really dope of you. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please tell a friend and let them know that you really like to listen and that I'm the best and you have nothing bad to say about the podcast. If you do, I'll cry. I'm just kidding. And I hope that you all have a lovely Thanksgiving. And I'll see you next week. For December, we're actually having a really fun lineup of books, and I think y'all are really going to like it and really enjoy it. And then that will be the end of season 1 after Christmas, and then we'll have to come back for season 2 and see what's up. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being excellent. Goodbye, lovelies.